This is the piece that I've been weaving on the 8-shaft loom. I took lots of video clips of it at different stages of the weave, with all the different pattern work that I've been experimenting with and trying out in this weave. This is my first time on an 8-shaft table loom, and I've been working on it for a long time because it's very fine thread that I've been weaving, and I've had a lot of other projects to finish, so I've just been trying to do bits in between, and it's finally finished. So in this video I'm taking it off the loom when it's done, and it's now being washed and is ready to use. I'm going to be cutting this piece up and sewing it into some projects that I'm going to make, so I'll post more about those in future vlogs and maybe talk about it some in Tea in the Wagons to show what I've been making with it. But I haven't started making anything yet with it, and it'll probably be a little while because I'm working on a lot of things for shop updates at the moment. I warped this loom for 3 patterns that I was going to be working with, which was twill and bird's eye and waffle weave, and I've experimented with it a lot. I've turned the patterns inside out, upside down, and done as many different things with it as I could while making notes of everything for future weaves, so that I could find lots of different ways of using those few patterns to work with. I partly thought it would be nice to leave it whole and use it as a scarf, but I'm quite excited about doing some projects with it, and I really like the cloth, and I think it would be really nice stitched into some different projects. Elfin had a special custom order from Kathy in Switzerland to make a colourful with lots of pink woven shawl, and so Elfin hand carded all the fibres for the art yarn that was in it, and then she hand spun the yarn and warped the loom and hand wove the piece with the art yarn that she spun and lots of hand dyed yarns. And this is her carding the fibres first of all before the spinning process. If you'd like to subscribe to our channel, you can click the notification bell if you'd like to be notified when we bring out a new video. And if you like this video, please do give it a thumbs up, because that really helps the video to get out there and for other people to see it as well. Thank you. Now that the yarn is spun and the twist has been set and it's been skeined, it's time to warp the loom. This is a rigid Heddle loom that Elfin's going to be weaving on. So she's putting the warp on, and we didn't record it, but then she had to thread every little Heddle on the loom and tie the warp onto the front bar ready to start weaving. She had to measure where to put the warping peg so that she could get the warp to the right length to make the right size shawl for Kathy. And here's the finished beautiful piece that Elfin has handwoven and handspun some of the yarns for, and it's now in Switzerland with Kathy. This summer we visited Butser Ancient Farm in the South Downs, and it's a beautiful place where they're doing an archaeological experiment to find out how the buildings were really made in ancient times. And here they've got, this is a Stone Age longhouse, and they've also built Bronze Age roundhouses, Iron Age roundhouses. There's a Roman villa and there's Saxon houses as well. Here's a look at some of the places there and how beautiful these buildings really are. And there's quite a few warp-weighted looms in some of the buildings which are recorded as well. Butser Ancient Farm is an amazing place to visit. I totally recommend it if you're able to get to the south of England to see it. I'll put a link in the description so that you can find the website of how to get there and all the details. Anybody who's been following for a while will know our little sheep, Lavender Edwina. She was born last summer, sometime in July. And she was a surprise little lamb. Her mother is Morag and her father is a textile. And this is her first shearing very recently. So this is her first fleece, and I'm gonna skirt the fleece and then I'm going to be washing it. But I just thought I'd video some of skirting the fleece because I don't think I've done that on video before. Elfin's wrapped it up really nicely, and then I'm just going to open up the fleece. Okay. I just take off any of the bits that are really got sheep poo in it, or really not such nice fleece. Any bits that have got tons and tons of plant matter in it. And often I deal with this stuff separately, so I just wash the whole of the cleanest part of the fleece, and then I'll often do something with the bits that I take off, not the second cuts. I take all the second cuts out. That's when, especially when I'm shearing, when I shear and then there's a bit that's been left and cut it again, and you get like little tiny bits of fleece that are too short a staple really for spinning. And some of the stuff like I take off some of the hind leg wool, which is a porcer, and that stuff I will also wash separately with this and use it for felting. And then the rest of what's left, which is most of it, well, nearly all of it, will go for spinning after it's been washed and dried and carded. So there's a piece to put to one side, and here I'm going to take some of this off. Bits of moss. There's some little second cuts and shorter bits as well. You get shorter bits in some places. In fact, that is a shorter bit, not a second cut, I think. Like around their tummies is very short. Yeah, so we'll take those bits out. There's some shorter bits, see how short they are. That's the length of the fibre there. So that's not for spinning with. And then I split the fleece up for washing because it makes it easier. The way that I wash wool is I put it into one big bucket in hot soapy water, and then I get the next bucket of same temperature water ready after it's soaked for just a short time. I don't let it go cool, I keep it hot, and then I lift the fleece out into the second bucket. So to have it in sections is much easier to lift when it's wet and heavy. So that's one piece to go in. You see all the little short bits dropping out there. give it a shake, the little bits will fall out as well. Five bundles of fleece ready to go into the bucket. This is my leftover bit. This I'll wash separately, it'll just need a lot more washing. Little bits I just put into the compost. So there's another bit. So that's all the one that will be washed second. And this year with my sheep, I've got a little pile like this with each sheep, and I'll just wash that all together like it's all one fleece, just one big pile of all the bits that I've skirted off it. I've got two massive buckets for washing sheep fleeces. That's I've always got one to fill with rinse water so that I can take the fleece from one bucket to the next. And I find that lifting the fleece out of the water brings it out cleaner. If I tip the water through the fleece, the dirt that's in the bottom of the bucket just goes back into the fleece. So I find lifting it out and into a fresh bucket of water is a really good way to do it. This is the way that I clean sheep fleeces. There's loads of different ways, everybody does it in different ways. But I get my bucket and I fill it with as hot water as I can get out of the tap. Which is really hot out of our tap. And in this first pan, I'm only using a pan because I haven't got a hose set up to the tap. I haven't got the attachment to set it up to the tap, so I have to fill these pans to fill it up. And in this one, I've got some eco-friendly washing liquid that you can use. You know, there's all kinds of wool wash products and stuff like that. But this hasn't got the harsh foaming agents that are hard to rinse out. It's just easy to rinse out when it's an eco one. So I'm putting that in, and I'm going to keep topping that bucket up until it's about 2/3 full, and then once the fleece is in there it's really full. But having lots of water in means it's got lots of space to move it around, because I do move the fleece around a bit, I don't agitate it too much, but I do move it to help get the dirt out. So I'm going to put the rest of the pans of hot water into there to bring it up to the level I want it before I put a lavender's fleece into the bucket. These are the bundles of fleece that I separated. They're all from lavender's fleece, and I put them in pieces. Because the water's so hot, to get it under the water I use a stick and I just push it down until it's fully submerged. And I'm going to leave that to soak. I don't know how long, I just keep checking the water that it's still hot. So I'm going to leave it, I don't know how long it would be, 5-10 minutes, something like that. Just as long as that water hasn't cooled down too much, because I want to get it into the next bucket, and I don't want if the water cools down, then the lanolin's in that hot water and I want to get it out. So I'm going to leave it in while that water's still hot, and then when I'm ready to, I'm going to fill this bucket with the same amount of hot water, and then I'm going to lift it from that one to that one, and then I just change the water until the soap is out of it. I don't want any soap left in the fleece, so I'm going to leave that there. Before I move it into the next bucket, I do just move the fleece around a bit just to make sure all the dirt is loosened and coming out, but not too much that it agitates it enough to felt it. The things that felt a fleece, often people get worried about washing sheep fleece. The things that felt a fleece
or too much agitation. You need to give it a little bit just to get just a little bit of movement just to get the dirt to release, but without agitating it and squeezing it and kind of ruffling it up and stuff like that, because that would start to felt it. The other thing that felts a fleece is shock of temperature. So if I take that fleece out of hot water and put it into cool water or cold water, then it's going to just felt together. So that's why I'll make sure the next rinse bucket is of the same temperature as that one. This has been soaking a little while. Yeah, that water's still quite hot, especially if I put my hand down into it, because I just check it to see what temperature it is. On the surface it feels a bit cooler, but if I put my hand down into the bucket, that's really quite hot. So I've got to make sure that this bucket, I've put fresh water in there, but I need to, this is hot water, and I'm going to add cold to it until it's at the same temperature as putting my hand right into that bucket. That's pretty hot. I've got a hose connected to cold water, so I'll just pack it up with some cold. I've just finished adding cold water to this bucket, and the last bit of cold water that I put in has took it a little bit under temperature. So I've got some more hot water from the kitchen to top it up. Because actually the water that I put, when I take the fleece out of the first washing water or any rinsing water or anything, I make sure that the bucket that it's going into is just slightly higher, just very slightly higher temperature than the one that's come out of. When I do felting, because I actually do felting on purpose, and when I do felting, I find it's the cold water that really brings on the felting and makes it felt together. So I think it's better to be slightly warmer than slightly cooler. So that feels right now. So I'm going to lift the fleece out. So that is clear there. I'm just going to put the rest of it on. I'm going to lift the fleece out. I don't tip the water out, 2 reasons. One is it does agitate the fleece as the water's tumbling, but that's not the main reason. The main reason is all the dirt that's in this bucket, well, not all of it, but a lot of it sinks to the bottom of the bucket, bottom of the water. So if I tip that water out through the fleece, holding the fleece in the bucket and tip it through it, that dirt's going to go back into the fleece. So I lift it out of the bucket. I've tipped away the majority of the water, and in the bottom there, oh, it's moved around now and mixed together, but there was a thick layer of silt in the bottom of the bucket. So yeah, that would have all gone back into the fleece if I'd tipped it out. This is done now, all the soap is out of it, and as much dirt that's going to release has come out and been rinsed out. So I've got an airer, and it's got thin sticks.
Bars.
What do you call it?
Bars. Bars.
Bars. To hold the fleece. So I've got this piece of wire mesh that I put on top, and that just means that any pieces of fleece that come off don't fall through the bars onto the floor and get dirty again. So I'm going to lift it out and put it straight onto the mesh. Still picking little bits of plant out. Lots of the little bits of plants that are in there come out when I do the picking on the swinging wool picker, which is in one of my other videos. And then I just open out the fleece onto there. That's all on there now, and you can see in the bucket these little bits are just the last second cuts that just come out in the wash. It's really easy to separate those. I pick them off when skirting, and then the last few little bits, that bit's a bit longer, last few little bits just come off into the bucket. Yeah, there's still some vegetable matter in here, but those little bits of plants will come out when I'm picking it on the swinging wool picker. And I leave this on the rack to drip, and then it'll be quite light to lift, and I'll lift the whole thing into the polytunnel. Luke will help me, and we get it into the polytunnel where it's covered so it won't get rained on, and it's also hot in there most days, so it'll dry really quickly. And then when it's drying, I just turn the whole fleece over and make sure that the air is getting to all of it. And you can see here, after all that washing, it opens out really easily. Look, not felted at all. Little bits of leaves. So yeah, that fleece is really nice and open, and it'll be beautiful when it's all picked and then carded. And then yeah, when it's spun, it'll get another really big wash to clean anything else out of it that might be left in there. And some parts are discoloured on white fleeces, and the yarn that I spin with any discoloured bits, it's clean, it's just discoloured, and those yarns go in the dye bucket and I dye them. So that's how I work with my fleeces and what I do with them. And I'll show you I've got a hanging dryer. This one I use for fleeces that are barbed, like, you know, the fibres all hold together really well as a whole fleece, or in big pieces. But the fleeces that I wash, a lot of long wools and a lot of locks and things like that, those kind of fleeces are more smooth haired and they just fall apart into bits, like the whole fleece is in bits. So for those ones, I've got a special drying rack that, well, it's not a rack, it's like a hanging dryer in hoops, and it zips up as well, so I can zip it into there and hang it in the polytunnel to dry. And I'll show you that in a bit, because I've got a Leicester long wool fleece in there right now. But this will just dry in the polytunnel as it is. I'll just close those over just to keep it on there, so none of it falls off when I'm moving it up to the polytunnel. That's it. This is my drying net in the tunnel, in the polytunnel, and it's got some Leicester long wool locks in it, and they're all dry now. So I'm going to be taking those out and putting them through the wool picker, and some of the longer ones I might separate and keep to use for lock spinning. And the little zips on it keep any insects and creatures out. And I just turn it over just once while it's drying. Unless the weather is really cold or damp, then I turn it a couple of times. But in the warmer weather, I just turn it once. Lots of lovely and interesting people come to stay here, and this summertime we met James and Suzanne, who came to stay. They do a lot of work for wildlife organisations, and they monitor the moths to see how the species are doing and try and keep a check on moth numbers in different areas. They showed Elfin some of the moths that came to their light. They rigged up a light to attract the moths so that they could see what kind of moths were here at this time of year, and these are some of the ones that came. There was lots of other moths as well, but I just recorded these few. They're all so beautiful.
Our next video will be a tea in the wagon, which will be coming soonish, probably in a couple of weeks' time. It's usually about 2 to 3 weeks when we post a new video. Thank you so much to all our patrons. Your support really helps to get these videos made, and the time it takes to put them together, record them, and everything that goes into it. Thank you so much. If you'd like to join our Patreon crafts community, you can find us on patreon.com/Leah and Elfie, and we have lots of different tiers available in memberships where there's all different kinds of rewards available, from things like monthly creative prompts, a group community to post your work and share with other people and chat to people all over the world if you'd like to. And there are live meetups if you'd like to join in with those on there, craft along meetups, there are project along meetups and tutorials. There are postcards and surprise goodie boxes and goodie bags and lots of other things as well.